Good morning to all the participants of the Philippine Pharmacy Summit 8. It is an honor to be here with you today. I'd like to thank the UP Pharmaceutical Association Student Council and UP College of Pharmacy for giving me this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Before I formally start my talk, I want you guys to ask yourselves, what if we could go back in time and change the way we develop our drugs? Would it make a significant difference today? Let's find out as we unravel green chemistry across the life cycle of drug from manufacturing design until disposal. I hereby declare that I do not own the rights to the images and research articles that will be presented here. All available contents of this presentation is for the sole purpose of providing insights and better understanding of green chemistry in the pharmaceutical science. I'll be talking about the environmental pollution brought about the pharmaceutical waste and the current efforts to minimize its impacts. And what are the approaches? Shifting to green chemistry in drug manufacturing, and discuss the role of green chemistry in the life cycle of a drug along with its 12 principles. And also, I'm going to discuss the green chemistry status in the Philippines. 8 years ago, US FDA created a content in their YouTube page about disposal of unused medicines. One of the speakers, Dr. Henry Yu, the then Consumer Safety Officer, stated that, quote, and flushing of medicines contributes only a small fraction of the total medicine found in the water. But guess what? A 5-year research study conducted by the U.S. Geological Survey shows that 4,000 prescription medications used for human and animal health ultimately find their way on the environment. Now, who is the culprit? The ultimate source for all pharmaceuticals is manufacturing facilities. Effluents from manufacturing contains 10 to 1,000 times higher concentration of pharmaceutical compared to effluents that do not receive pharmaceutical discharge. But there is a source. Guess who? It's me, you, and the problem is we. The drugs that are prescribed to the patients essentially are not all metabolized in the body, and the excess ends up in a wastewater, leaving homes and entering the sewage treatment plants. To that, antibiotics delivered to livestock makes them part of the top sources of pharmaceutical pollution in the environment. And mind you guys, as far as 30 kilometers from the source, pharmaceutical contaminants are with and traceability. Now, this was further supported by a study published by the U.S. National Academy of Sciences on the pollution on the world's rivers. The research was a collaboration of 196 countries, including the Philippines. The study strengthened environmental exposure to API has deleterious effects on the health of ecosystems and humans. Out of the 196 countries, it's sad to say, the third country belongs to the group with highest cumulative API concentrations quantified. And the top three factors contributing to this large range in API concentrations are as follows. First, your socioeconomic impact. API's concentration were found highest in countries with lower to middle income based on gross national income index. Although speculative, lower to middle income countries typically have less investment to wastewater infrastructure. And the access and affordability of cheaper medicines in these countries could lead to improper waste management system. Pharmaceutical pollution is most positively associated with population, median age, local unemployment, and poverty rates. Second is pharmaceutical detection frequencies and concentrations. Of the 61 APIs detected, 48 were detected in Asia. And the top three APIs with highest detection frequency across the participating countries are carbamazepine, metformin, and caffeine. Whilst at the bottom three are fluoxetine, etraconazole, and ketotifen. The contributing factor on this large range of APS concentration are relatively affordability and the differences in regulatory oversight of the accessibility of these medicines in different countries. And the last one is the implications of global pharmaceutical pollution for ecological and human health. Since APIs are biological active molecules specifically designed to interact with biochemical pathways, it is expected that exposure could lead to deleterious impact over aquatic and terrestrial. Biological testing is required to determine the predicted no effect concentration or PNEC. This would allow us to evaluate the critical environmental concentration of chemicals and be able to monitor data. The monitoring is regulation and approaches. Here are some of the examples of APIs that were commonly found across the to name some, so while the impacts of APIs are quite alarming, the government and the private sectors imposed several regulations to minimize the pollution caused by pharmaceutical waste. Yes, the USFA have then be dropped off at the drug take-back site, location, or program. It could be a drug manufacturer, a local pharmacy, or government-related agencies. But last time I tried to look for drug disposal in my Google search engine, but didn't find one. I guess they go by different name depending on your location. Now, what if there is no available drug take-back option? US FDA has recommendation in cases when there is no drug take-back program. You need to check if the medicine is on the FDA flash list drugs. Now, if yes, you can immediately flash this potentially dangerous medicine down to fentanyl, hydrocodone, meperidine, and morphine, just to name few. But how about when they're not in the FDA flash list? Almost all medicines can be thrown into your household trash. These include your OTC drugs, pills, liquids, drops, and creams. So you need a container. You need to scratch out all the personal details to protect your data privacy. Here in our country, the main way to achieve drug disposal is to sort the materials to minimize the need for expensive or complicated disposal methods. Earlier today, I talked with Ma'am Ocampo, and let me iterate what Ma'am Ocampo said earlier. Unfortunately, FDA Philippines don't have clear guidelines, regulations about the drug take-back program. Though DOH, their pharmaceutical department, and DNR plays a pivotal role on the proper disposal of expired medicines as well as medical supplies. And disposal of expired medicine, according to DNR, must be in accordance with pyrolysis standards and must be buried or dumped in identified location. But despite the numerous policy we have here in the Philippines, like the Clean Air Act of 1999 and the Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, it's undeniable. Effects of pharmaceutical or chemical waste are still evident. For me, incineration of drugs alone could give birth to hazardous gases such as dioxin. Now, much has been said about the deleterious effects of improper handling of pharmaceutical waste and its corresponding impact on public health, on animals, and the environment. How do we address this issue at the atomic level? This is where your green chemistry comes in. Green chemistry is a framework based on 12 principles which encourages scientists to use greener chemicals, processes, or products to maximize the efficiency of experiments and to find new ways to minimize waste generation, conserve energy, and eliminate the use of hazardous substances. You may ask yourself, as a pharmacist, what is your role towards green chemistry? Along with the chemists, pharmacists play a pivotal role in improving drug sustainability in research, manufacturing, and in the community. In research and manufacturing, the Professional Regulatory Board of Pharmacy and Board of Chemistry signed a joint resolution on year 2020 on the authority to sign analysis certification of pharmaceutical products and their raw materials, food or dietary supplements, health and cosmetics. This resolution strengthened the participation of pharmacists in the chemical analysis and synthesis of drugs. I have worked with several pharmacists in drug manufacturing company and I've seen their knowledge, commitment, and dedication towards method validation, monograph testing, and quality management system. While in the community and medical institutions, pharmacists are in great position to be proactive and impact knowledge to the patients regarding the proper management of drugs for them to develop greener pharmacy. Now, what can green chemistry offer? In general, based on the human health, environment, business, and economics, in general, green chemistry allows us to enjoy all the technological advances and innovations without all the unintended consequences. During the Industrial Revolution, green chemistry was seldom observed in R&D sectors. Businessmen were more concerned on the final product that could create a lot of money in just a short span of time, and not paying attention on the inherent impact of chemical pollution. And now, we are part of the generation that suffers the effects of decade-long overdue compounded chemical hazards in the environment. It was only in 90s when green chemistry became a legitimate scientific field, when scientists across the globe agreed that the environmental deterioration caused by the chemical processes and pollution could be reversed with viable strategy, and that is implementing green chemistry across the research, development, and manufacturing. In 2005, the American Chemical Society Green Chemistry Institute established an industrial roundtable for the pharmaceutical industry. This is to catalyze and enable green chemistry and engineering into chemical businesses. It's great to know that well-known pharmaceutical companies, as you can see, embrace this discipline, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also cost is the factor being considered years. Let's have a closer look at the figures here. The figure on your left shows significant decline of the chemical waste released to land, air, and water, which decreased by 7%. On the right side, also shows significant downward trend of the total usage of solvent waste that are used to purify complex forms of drugs. Typically, these solvents include hydrochloric acid, trichloroethane, and methyl isobutyl ketone. However, Dr. David, the current director of Green Chemistry Institute, says that this figure does not involve green synthetic chemistry. Rather, it's largely related to process changes in manufacturing retrofitting. Green chemistry has been around since 1998. The founder of the 12 Principles of Green Chemistry, Dr. Paul Anastas and Dr. John Warner, are presently involved and constantly working in promoting green chemistry with the academe, government, and industry. As you can see, there is a plus one in the slide, and I've learned this from Dr. Anastas in one of his interviews with CNBC News, though it was not made official. So we'll just go through here quickly. First is prevention. It means less waste is directly proportional to less pollution. Second, atom economy. It is the primary criterion for green chemistry. It is the ratio of the mass of the desired product with the total mass of products. And an optimal process has an atom economy near 100%. Now, number three is less hazardous chemical synthesis. The goal should be to avoid reactions that give hazardous byproducts. Then design of safer chemicals. This modification should be reflected up to the molecular level of chemical design. So it eliminates the chemicals that are carcinogenic, neurotoxins, and hormone disruptor. Safer solvent and auxiliaries. In general, the use of solvents should be avoided, but if not possible, try to replace them with greener ones. Design for energy efficiency. Process should be carried out on ambient conditions. Use of renewable feedstocks. Switching to biomass as a feedstock and energy source. Reduce derivatives. The reaction takes place at a particular functional group, blocking unnecessary waste generation. And then catalysis. Siguro ito yung pinaka-familiar kayo. Provides many benefits from the lower energy consumption to increase selectivity of the reaction and allow a decreased use of harmful and toxic chemical agents. Design for degradation means during the usage of chemicals, it should be stable and do not persist to the environment even after usage. Real-time analysis for pollution prevention. It means opens the scope of up-to-date process control and prevents any possible threats. And then the 12 is inherently safer chemistry for accident prevention. It acts as a safeguard against calamitous industrial or laboratory accidents. Are you excited dun sa 13?
Yes.
With the increasing number of pharmaceutical companies joining the ACS-GCI roundtable, it could be deduced that majority of big pharma practice green chemistry in the design of drug manufacturing processes, namely because of the amount of manufacturing savings they are able to generate per annum. This is a simplified representation of a life cycle of a pharmaceutical product. As you see, the heart of green chemistry mainly points redesigning at the atomic level. Much of green chemistry principle is applied at the R&D development of novel products. This includes, but is not limited to, selection of precursor materials, number of solvents, determining the number of steps in synthetic process, and possible degradation path of the API. Hence, it could impact the way we manufacture drugs, the way we transport them, and the way humans and animals use it, and the way we handle its disposal. Now, we cannot manage what we cannot measure. A reminder that in environmental sustainability, it is critical to know where and how much impact or dependency a product has on the wider ecosystem services. For green metrics to be useful for pharmaceutical processes, they need to provide a measurable objective of the progress towards the broader goal of sustainability so that appropriate decisions can be taken. And as you see sa table, itong mga formula na to, they're obtained from your 12 principles in green chemistry. This is a typical example of most active areas in green chemistry, and they call it green analytical methods. Here are the top 3 drug samples that undergoes optimization and modifications to conform with the principles of green chemistry. And these drugs has been nominated by the prestigious, it's like a Nobel Prize Award, brought about by the ACS GCI to to challenge the academe, government, and industry to promote green chemistry and their research. These examples of green solvents that are recommended by the Green Chemistry Institute in the manufacturing processes. So, nandito yung more toxic and lesser toxic. And mostly, current practices natin ngayon, nandito tayo sa mga medyo toxic na mga solvents. But the green chemistry tries to modify or at the beginning, iwasan itong mga toxic solvents and use the greener one. This slide is more on the application of green chemistry at the manufacturing perspective. So sa mga chemical engineers to. It is a continuous manufacturing techniques which includes flow chemistry techniques. These are increasingly being utilized to reduce the amount of material and energy needed in a process while incorporating real-time analysis, control, and enhanced process safety. It serves as a sustainable chemical process that retrofits existing manufacturing procedures towards green chemistry. Green chemistry in the Philippines context. The Global Environment Facility, GEF, in partnership with UN Development Program or UNDP, aims to reduce the use, trade, release, and storage of persistent organic pollutants or POPs, which are carbon-based toxins that take a long time to break down, and it has a hazardous impact on the environment and on humans. Philippines was granted this project through DNR that aims to close the gap by enabling the manufacturing sector to take a greener approach to chemical and hazardous waste management. Also, ang kilala ko na Filipino-owned company that yung vision and mission nila is rooted sa green chemistry is human nature. It is a Filipino-owned cosmetic company, and as you see doon sa website nila, sa mga products nila, and may kilala din ako nag-work doon, very, yung R&D nila is really devoted towards doon sa fulfilling yung 12 principles of chemistry. Though not necessarily lahat, but most of it. And sa last slide, it's Ma'am Velarde ng Adamson University. She said on her talk in 2021 webinar with Philippine Science Hub on green chemistry, currently Philippines don't have a research center dedicated to fulfilling the principles of green chemistry. Kasi meron tayo, di ba, PNRI, sa textiles, sa sustainable packaging, but we don't have at the moment dedicated for green chemistry. However, what we currently practice, especially yung undergraduate students and in allied professions, STEM students, senior high, they have research and studies that focuses sa NATPRAD. Yun ang pinakamalapit sa green chemistry, yung like phytochemical analysis. And also, studies about catalysis, yung paggamit sa nanotechnology. Also, yung paggamit din ng greener solvents in your research. So, sa mga undergraduate dyan pursuing thesis, baka pwede niyong baguhin yung mga methods niya. And, last slide. Gusto ko mag-iwan ng quote. This is very green chemistry. Begin with the end in mind. That would be all. Thank you.
So, my first question po tayo dito for Sir Villarmino. In our country, pharmaceutical waste management is only directly addressed by the Healthcare Waste Management Manual of the DOH published last year. And this manual only guides healthcare waste management for healthcare facilities and not individual patients. So, how can pharmacists raise awareness about proper medicine disposal?
Thank you for that question. As I said earlier, sa community, yung mga pharmacists natin, they're in the position kasi they know the technicalities of the drugs. So, sa kanila pa lang, they should inform yung mga patients regarding the proper disposal of the drugs. And the fact nga na we don't have proper regulations sa FDA, as a knowledge base nyo na lang on how you deal with the drug, you share it with the patients. So, ganun natin siya i-impose at the community level.
Thank you po. Okay, so for our next question, for Sir Eds naman po about functional foods. Are there enriched foods that can be considered as genetically modified organisms?
Okay, so kanina na-mention ko na may yung functional food na genetically modified, no? One example would be the Arctic apple. So the Arctic apple was genetically modified so that it can withstand extreme temperatures, so that it can produce yan, genetically engineered. Yung ano din natin, yung BT corn, yung mga corn na kinakain natin, they are genetically modified so that hindi sila maatake ng mga pests, as well as to contain more vitamin A and more nutrients. So, yun yung mga genetic modifications. But of course, ang pinaka-ano dito, the question here is, yung mas tatanungin natin yung acceptability. So a lot of countries, until now, hindi pa rin receptive about genetic modification. In the Philippines, I don't think we're still ready for that. Yung iba, pag nasabing GMO, ay, hindi ako mag-take niyan. So, unti-unti na ini-introduce. But, of course, this technology is already happening elsewhere in the world.
Ayan, so for our face-to-face participants, you may still ask your questions by going there in the center. Ayan, may question yata tayo.
Hello po. May I ask po why our nutraceuticals are not as heavily regulated when I guess, sir, na they are classified as food products and not medicine. That's why the reason na hindi siya masyadong heavily regulated. But why aren't they improve? Bakit hindi pa nag-improve yung regulations when in fact na meron ng maraming tao na nasasaktan ng dahil sa nutraceuticals po?
Part of the reason is the monitoring of this. Kasi yung notion din na yung mga ginagamit natin for nutraceuticals, they are classified as generally regarded as safe or GRAS. Okay? So with that thinking, parang as I mentioned earlier, you don't need to produce yung mga evidence about safety, etc. All you need to do is to make sure that you are GMP compliant and yun na, yung may ano na yung product mo na established na siya na talagang may safety profile. Unti-unti pa lang tayo nagkakaroon ng ganitong notion na dapat talagang kung paano natin nire-report yung mga adverse reactions or mga adverse events with the use of these products, they should be reported just like kung ano yung ginagawa natin sa mga pharmaceutical. Unfortunately, in the Philippines, yun nga, wala pa tayong gano'n. That's the way to go in the future. Wala pa kasing, ayun din, isa sa mga problema, hindi tayo nagre-report. Diba? Kung walang report, walang signal, just like in pharmacovigilance. If there's no signal coming from the ground or any user or healthcare professional, then walang magpo-prompt sa FDA na parang, oh, ano na pala to, ang dami na palang cases na ganito. So all the more that we need to establish this reporting system. Unlike in other countries, they have a special unit that actually gathers information, lahat mga product complaints, adverse reactions with this in European countries. But in the Philippines, wala. So we need to strengthen that up. And ma-open yung mind ng mga people na if, for example, you're taking a herbal supplement, you really need to report kung ano yung maramdaman mo. Hindi yung iisipin mo na, ano naman yan, baka normal lang yon yung pagtatae kapag nagtitake ako ng alkaline capsules, when it's not. So kulang tayo doon. That's the reason why hindi ganun ka-establish yung reporting sa atin.
Thank you very much. Meron po bang additional questions? What about for Slido. Ayan, at Irene, thank you.
Question galing from online participants. First question, should we begin to implement more stringent regulations on nutraceuticals, specifically on the upper or lower bounds of phytochemicals?
I guess that question is for me. I-qualify natin yung word na strict. Is strict in what sense? Because if we are to regulate the claims, that is something that we have to be strict on. Okay, and then safety.
May example po siya
Sige.
binigay. So, for example po, should we set bounds on the level of santones, alpha, beta, and gamma mangosteen in mangosteen-based supplements?
Good question. So, syempre, yung mga ganyang mga nutraceuticals, sasabihin lang nila, meron kaming gantong percent ng xanthan content. Pero wala naman talaga tayong parang accepted daily intake ng mga ganito. And that's something that we have to establish first before we put stricter regulations on that. Kasi in other countries, like yung mga St. John's Wort, yung mga kilala established na mga nutraceuticals, they already have more research on this, and that's the reason why they already have put a specific amount, like kung ganito yung content na dapat laman ng nutraceuticals na yan, if we test your nutraceuticals and hindi siya pumasa or sobrang taas niya or sobrang baba, then we can actually, put yung mga ganong regulations. However, for these kinds of supplements, wala pa kasing established. That's the first one that we need to establish first before we put stringent regulations on this. Sa ngayon, wala eh. Even yung Santones.
Okay po. Medyo related din po, but from another online participant. Is there a need to regulate foods enriched with certain nutraceuticals?
The answer is yes and no. Okay? No, because of course these are normal food. We take rice na may vitamin A, etc. So okay yon, established na talaga yon. Pero yung gusto nating part is yung constant monitoring kasi hindi naman lahat ng tao will have same reaction with that kind of functional food. We have to be vigilant as well. Kasi may iba na baka allergic pala sila sa ganito. Let's say quercetin. May mga taong allergic sa high quercetin content. So in that manner, we have to put emphasis on the monitoring of these products.
Thank you so much, Sir Eds. We have another question here for Sir Villarmino. How could we entice manufacturing companies to apply the principles of green chemistry?
The members of the ACSGCI already, yung mga big pharma like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Novartis, they are already starting to apply the principles of green chemistry. Now, the challenge is sa mga toll manufacturing setup. Kasi I have experience na itong mga toll manufacturing companies, they have already obsolete procedures in the process of manufacturing and in the process of testing. Kasi there are instances na, kunyari sa analysis ng Dalasing C, yun, gumagamit pa to ng derivatization in order na ma-quantify siya sa gas chromatography. Whereas, kung babalikan natin yung parent company, nagbago na yung procedure. I have experienced one during audit. Nung nakita nung, I will not name drop, Big Pharma, yung procedure na ginagamit namin, bakit parang the procedure na ginagamit namin was published 1980s. And anong year na? Marami nang nagbago. So bakit hindi to na-communicate? So there's a lack of communication between the toll manufacturing companies and the parent company on the improvement dun sa mga ginagamit nilang procedure. But for the parent companies, they're already starting implementing. Siguro, decade from now, saka lang natin makikita yung total impact ng green chemistry sa ating environment at sa mga tao.
So thank you for that answer. Okay, so we will be entertaining one last question from the audience.
Yan, good morning po. In terms of policy, both talks po kasi talked about how loose regulations are a challenge in terms of improving yung pharmacy practice here in the country. At this point, wherein most of us are students, is there any platform or are there any ways for us to contribute to the catalyzation of these guidelines at this point in our lives? Yeah. Thank you.
Policies should be backed by evidence, research. So as budding pharmacists or pharmacists of the future, yung mga pag-collect ng data about yung initial safety and efficacy of these nutraceuticals or functional food, as well as yung monitoring ng mga side effects, adverse reactions, ganyan. We can start from there. Because if nobody will do it, how else would the policymakers have information or data about this? Okay? In other countries where research is strong, like in Thailand, kapag meron silang about yung mga nutraceuticals nila or food supplements, when they have complaints, ganyan, they gather all this and then they form it into a policy later on. So yun yung pinaka mako-contribute ng mga pharmacy students, more research on this area.